Welcome back. In this part, we're going to take a little bit deeper look into input and output, in particular file I/O. There are lots of ways to do file I/O, but I'm going to show you the easiest and most straightforward way of doing it in Java. The way that I'm going to recommend that you do it is using a scanner. So I'm going to first create a scanner here. I need to import it from the utilities library. Now, what's it going to be scanning? There are lots of things you can scan. You can basically scan any input stream. Now, files are input streams, but also the standard input is an input stream. Well, we know where the standard output is. It's in system.out, so the standard input would be in system.in. So if I wanted to use this, I could go ahead and start reading from the console, basically. I'll ask the scanner for the next integer in the stream. Now, the way that this is going to work with the standard input is it's going to sit there and block until somebody enters in a value and then hits enter. And we'll go ahead and echo it back out to the user. Now in Eclipse, the standard input is just down here. If you just start typing in the console, 123, enter, then it'll work. But now you need to be careful because the standard input is not well formatted. In other words, there's nothing to prevent me from entering in hello. And then there will be a input mismatch exception because I didn't enter in an integer and we asked for the next integer. There are lots of ways that you can handle this. We'll get to error handling later on. But I just wanted to show you that you can actually read from any stream. Now let's go ahead and read in from a file instead. So there's a file class in the java.io input-output library. This doesn't actually create the file, it just creates a reference to it. The scanner is that actually opens up that file. So instead of reading from the standard input, we could read in from F. Right? And instead of prompting them for an integer, we'll go ahead and read an integer from that actual file. Now a couple of things are going to happen here. First of all, it's complaining about this. What we need to do is we need to surround this with a try-catch block. Why? Because, well, what happens if the file doesn't exist? Right? Then this scanner, or creating this scanner, is going to throw a file not found exception, in which we can handle it down here. Again, we haven't gotten to error handling yet. I'll get to that next. For now, we'll just go ahead and see what happens when this file doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist because I haven't created it yet. We get that no such file or directory. Right? I'm opening a file called input.txt in a directory we're going to assume that it's in a directory called data. Now everything is relative to my project here. If I wanted to do an absolute file path, of course I could start with a /, but otherwise if it's relative, then it's relative to my project in Eclipse. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder called data. Then I can also create that file. And inside that file, I'll go ahead and put a regular old integer. Now when I run this file does exist. It'll be able to open it up, and it'll be able to read that first integer on that first line. And it reads 123. Now, generally we don't just open a file for one value, so we're going to want to process the entire file. The scanner class provides you a lot of utilities that you can use to check to see if you're at the end of the file. You can read the next integer, read the next double, read the next token, read the next string, or read the next line. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do. I'm just going to read the entire file line by line until we get to the end of the file. So up front, I don't know how many lines are going to be in the file. I'd have to read the entire file first to find that out. So I'm going to use a while loop because I don't know upfront how many iterations I'm going to actually be doing here. And the way that I check to see if there's another line to read is has next line. There's also has next if it's any old token, not just an entire line. or next int. So while the scanner still has another line to read, I will go ahead and read it in. And instead of just the next integer or the next string, it's the next line. I'm not going to do anything with it. I'll just output it to the standard output. And of course, there's only one line in that file. So let me go ahead and go back and add some more data here. So there are 8 lines there. 2 of them are blanks. I'm doing that to show you that it'll actually read those blank lines there. And of course, instead of just printing line, you could actually process it. For example, if you wanted to process CSV data, which we may do in the exercises. Now, after you're done reading the file, of course, you've read to the end of the file. Otherwise, you would not have broken out of this while loop. I'll go ahead and close my scanner. Now, for the most part, 99% of the time, it'll take care of it for you. It's that 1% of the time where you fail to close a resource and you're either wasting memory or other resources, or you end up corrupting the file. So explicitly closing it is preferable. Now, again, there are lots of ways to do file output as well. Again, I'm going to show you the simplest, easiest, most straightforward way of doing it, just simply using what's called a PrintWriter. So I'll go ahead and create a file called output, and it's a little bit different here because if the file doesn't exist, that's perfectly fine. It'll be created for you. Now, unfortunately, I still need to surround it with a file not found exception. It will be created for you. Obviously, it doesn't exist over here yet. So it will create this for me if I want to output stuff to it. But there are instances in which this could fail. For example, if you didn't have permission to actually create that file in that particular directory. I recommend that you use a PrintWriter because it has a lot of convenient methods already done for you. For example, you can just print directly. You can use println. You can use printf. Right? So very, very similar to system.out. In fact, system.out is an output file stream or an output stream. And this is, PrintWriter is also outputting to a stream or a file stream in this case. So let me go ahead and run this. Right? And we didn't see any output here as expected because we're not outputting to the standard output, we're outputting to a file. Unfortunately, we don't see it over here, and this is a quirk of a lot of IDEs, in particular with Eclipse, that it needs to be refreshed. I'll just go ahead and right-click over here and hit refresh, or you could go with F5 as a quick key, and you see that the file was actually there the whole time. And we see that it's empty. And why is that? Because I forgot what? To close my resources. Now, it's a little bit more important with output that you actually close your resources than it is with input, because if you're writing stuff, stuff could be stuck in a buffer somewhere and not actually flushed out. And now when I open the outputs file, everything is there. So this is one of the first instances in which we have to do some explicit error handling, which we'll talk about next.